Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wild Card Weekend podcast. My name is Terry Fletcher, going solo this week from sunny California. Actually, not so sunny today. It is 60s and raining, and we're cold. I actually have my slippers on, but yeah, don't tell Joe that. They're back in Ohio and Pennsylvania and the East Coast, and very cold. I hear frigid temperatures and single digits, and that's actually what Pittsburgh's looking at this weekend after having some 20s reported for this week, and then after the fact it'll be 20s, 30s, but it looks like Sunday is going to be a pretty cold day, which means Pittsburgh weather knows what it has to do also to make sure that we seal that victory over the Jags. But before we get to that, talk about a WTF wildcard weekend. I mean, some of these games were so hard to watch. I don't know how you guys felt, but it was painful, and on more reasons than one. So first of all, we had the Titans-Chiefs, and then we had the Falcons-Rams, and the home teams were not being favored this weekend when it came to winning. So the Chiefs lost by a point. It was 22-21, and it's just interesting when you look at that game, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we have to talk about officiating, just the WTF weekend of it. The integrity of the game is now gone. It's supposed to be the refs are supposed to really hold that integrity of the game, integrity of the competition, but now they're just looking at, you're asking a ref to decide the safety of a player, to decide, safety on the field. Was that hard enough? Was that too hard? Were they an inch away from the helmet when they hit? Even though the players are doing what they're trained to do, and yes, there are times when it's a problem, where you're just like, oh man, where's the flag? But now, at home, we sit there and say, where's the flag on almost every play? Every single player turns around and looks for a flag when they don't make a play. And just the integrity of the game has really gone down. But I'll get to that in a minute. But the Rams lost, and they lost 13-26 to the Falcons. I knew the Falcons were going to win. That wasn't a surprise to me. The Bills-Jags game, what a mess that was. Okay, so that's a 3-10, 10-3 victory for I guess you call it a victory. I'm not sure what you call that, the Jags over the Bills. And then the Saints did pull out a 5-point win, 31-26 over Panthers. But first of all, before we get into any of that, let's talk about what happened in Cleveland, Ohio. Talk about a WTF. So you know that they had a Cleveland Browns parade in Cleveland this weekend. Yes, I said it. A 0-16 team, a team that's 1-31 in 2 seasons. And by the way, their coach still has a job, which don't even get me started on that. But, I try to really dismiss it, and I was trying not to criticize fans and think, what are you guys doing out there? But it seemed like the fans wanted something, just something to be able to hold on to. I mean, even if it was a parody of a parade, it lacked legitimacy for me. But, these fans have season tickets. They're ticket holders. They're paying to go see a train wreck of an NFL team, and you gotta cut them some slack a little bit. I mean, was it a WTF thing, the fact that it was on the TV? You better believe it was. Now, the good news was the parade happened without any ugly incidents. There was no, anything you heard on TV about, the police coming in or people brawling or throwing beer bottles, nothing like that. The fans seemed to enjoy it. I think what was funny when they were talking about the fans is they said there was between 5,000 and 10,000 fans. Well, which was it, 5 or 10,000? That's quite a bit of a disparity there. But also when you look and see what the players said, which sometimes I don't know what the players think about being on the Browns team. I mean, we have Joe Hayden now. When I say we, I mean the Steelers. I obviously put myself collectively in their locker room. But, Joe Hayden is just so happy to be on a team where he's playing in the postseason. A 7 year of not doing that and just having a 17-week season has to wear on you with all the punishment you take to your body. But some of the different players' reactions of that parade. So linebacker Christian Kiersey, he tweeted, don't kick us when we're down, lift us up when we win. Don't praise us because I will remember that you all laughed at us. I mean, okay, a couple of points there. I've looked at Kersey. I've looked at some of the things people have said about him. He played in all 16 games. He's a dedicated player. He seems to be a disciplined player. And it's good to see him frustrated and embarrassed on being in an 0-16 team. Not every player seems to be that way in Cleveland. He also is one of the team spokesmen when the Browns knelt down for the national anthem and said, fans need to respect their opinion. Well, you know what? It works both ways. If the fans want to do this, you've got to kind of put your ego aside there and just be a pro. Let the fans have their day. I do see that he put a tweet out later on that said we have to stick together. Those are the fans sticking together. They're just a little bit trying to figure out how they can live through the embarrassment of being a fan in Cleveland. So just remember, and I'll just finish it with it here with the WTF on the parade. The parade's not the problem. The 1-31 in the last 2 years, and the futility since 1999, and being the reason free agents aren't wild about Cleveland. And if you're anybody coming out of the draft, you're like, just please don't pick me, unless you're Johnny Manziel, and look how that worked out. But, and then again, this is not to dump on the players, but being embarrassed can sometimes lead to positive changes. The Haslam family that owns the Browns, I think they want to win. They just don't have any clue how to do it. Let's hope the new general manager, John Dorsey, knows how to do it. But in the meantime, the parade led to some, hopefully key players out there feeling pretty bad about the whole couple of seasons, and hopefully that changes the culture. But moving on from that, because our Steelers had a bye. So see, I didn't say we, now I said our Steelers. I'll include you collectively in that discussion. But here's something that I thought was interesting in looking at sportsillustrated.com, si.com. So the ratings on the TV ratings for the WTF weekend, or I'm sorry, the welcome to football. Yeah, for the wild card weekend, we're down 14% overall. 14%. Now, I know that some of that has to stem from the whole controversy with the anthem, but we don't know for sure. It could have been just who was in the wild card. But the Jags-Bills game, that time slot, that was down 10% versus what happened last year when it was Steelers-Dolphins. So trust me when I say this, folks, both the NFL and CBS will be saying their prayers, or WTF, just if something happens where the Jags upset the Steelers, and I pray that doesn't happen as well. Executives at the league and every network would be very, very sad if the AFC title game isn't Steelers-Pats. So WTF ratings for sure. Now I'm going to kind of talk about what we dealt with when it came to officiating. And if you watch the games at all, I just get tired of people bashing on the officials until this season. It's probably one of the worst seasons I've ever seen when it comes to officiating. And at some point, you've got to be an official out there and just say, just let me deal with it on the field. Stop sending it to New York. Because Al Riveron, we used to complain about, Dean Blandino, but, you never know what you had till it's gone. He at least, I felt, tried to at least have some integrity in the game. Al Riveron seems to do anything he can to make sure that anything that is said on the field or anything that's done has a favorable outcome for the Patriots. And seeing, the visual of Roger Goodell and the Kraft at the Rams game, I realize that, it's all about Hollywood. I live out here in Southern California. But come on, the visual of that alone was a little bit WTF for me. But the officiating was just terrible. Take the officiating in the Chiefs and Titans game. So first of all, you've got Jeff Triplett and crew, and he has not been out on the field in a playoff game in over 5 years. It's been since 2013. And so what, is he retiring? Is that his gift? I don't understand why you put him out there. Tony Corrente's crew in the Rams game, that was just ridiculous. That's the same crew that did the controversial Pat Steelers game, and where the Jesse caught the ball game. Yeah, it just bothers me when I see these crews out there that are just being rewarded with playoff games when they don't deserve it, where they're just not doing what they need to do in regular season, and it's just so frustrating. So let's take first the Chiefs-Titans game. Talk about a slow speed train wreck. You just couldn't turn away as much as you wanted to. It was so hard to watch. I actually had to just look away a couple of times because I was embarrassed. It was just so terrible. One of the things that were terrible, just getting away a little bit from the referee crew, but the drops. There were so many drops in passing. But the first thing that really, really bugged me is the new $100 million Raiders coach, or I should say the old coach, John Gruden. He was calling the game with Mike Tirico. And, everybody seems to think he's the second coming. I don't get that. He was a previous Raiders coach. He was fired or traded by them, then sent to Tampa Bay. He was fired by Tampa Bay. He's been out of coaching for 9 years. He's been on ESPN. I think he just signed an extension last year with them. And he's terrible. I mean, it doesn't help that he's got Sean McDonough up there, and they're both terrible. They don't know players' names. They have a love affair with Vontaze Burfict. It's just really sad. He says 1 minute, let the players play, and the next minute he sees something that he thinks is some kind of a hit and that he thinks should be penalized, and it's not penalized. He's so biased in the game. But, some of these media sportscasters, as they like to call themselves, they do some research before the game. They talk to coaches about the game plan, talk to them about players. That's a conflict of interest. There's no reason he should have been in the booth. And if you watch the Inside the NFL on Showtime, you really have to hear what Boomer Esiason said on it. He agrees. He was saying that is absolutely wrong. He should have been pulled on that. And so calling that game, that was a big WTF for me this weekend. And then the next has to do with the game itself. So the first half seemed like the Chiefs were in a blowout. They're up 21-3, and I just felt bad for the Titans. They were trying, and they're just such a subpar young team, I guess. They have, obviously, Dick LeBeau is the defensive coordinator, but, who's 80. But you're dealing with a very kind of a newer team, a very under-the-radar team. And I really love Mariota. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks out there. I think he gets killed a lot. He doesn't have the offensive line like Ben does. And I think if he did, that would be crazy for him because he's also a mobile quarterback. And, he's kind of small back there, but he's just got some instincts that I think are not bad. I mean, he's a decent quarterback. Probably if I would have to put him in on 32, I'd probably put him in the top 20. I don't think he's top 10, not even probably top 15, but he's right up there. He's at least I think he may be 15 if we're going to talk about that. But here's what happened. So in the first half of the game, the Chiefs, they were just moving along. They were doing great. 21-3 at half, and then Travis Kelce gets hurt. He took a huge hit, blow to the head, no flags thrown, which really surprised me because we could hear that. And I'm not a fan of his. I think he can be a big whiner sometimes, but he's a big guy. He's got a Gronkowski type body, and probably more cross between Gronkowski and our tight end Vance McDonald. But he makes plays, and he was making all kinds of plays and catches before that. But he got taken in, and he then got put in protocol. So he was in concussion protocol, so he's out. And as soon as that happened, it was like the choke of the game began. Now, I understand that they are 0-6 in playoffs at home, which is really sad. And so maybe there's a curse there or something, or Andy Reid loses his mind. I'm surprised that their offensive coordinator is gone. It should have been Andy Reid, and now they're talking about there's a big speculation that, Alex Smith may not be there, that it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. So What's terrible about that whole game is in the second half, why did they stop using Kareem Hunt? He's the leading running back, leading rusher in the league, and he only had 5 touches in that second half. I don't get that. I know he was passed to a couple times and dropped him, but feed him the ball. It was just crazy to me. Mariota had a fumble that was not called, and they did not replay it, and so they just allowed, and they just called it an incomplete pass, which it wasn't, or a bat down. And then I think looking at now one of the things that was a WTF saying, wow, he caught that. Mariota goes to throw a pass into the end zone, and I actually don't remember who it was to, but it was batted back to him by the cornerback, the newest cornerback on the Chiefs, Darrelle Revis. Yeah, talk about an island that needed to stay in the South Pacific. He batted it back to Mariota, who then catches it and scores a touchdown on a pass to himself. Is that Revis's legacy? I mean, we knew he was declining, but to end a game that way, and that really was it wasn't at the end, but it was really the turning factor, the turning point of the game. And then the refs are like, they felt like they had to explain why that was a legal pass, and it was back to himself. And you're sitting there going, well, because the ball's live. But no, they said, oh, Mariota was in shotgun formation. I'm like, what? No, what does that matter? Once the ball was batted up in the air by Darrelle Revis, the ball's live. Anybody could have caught the ball and done something with it. So even that kind of thing, just not understanding the rules, the game. There was also another one in the beginning of the game where the player tried to catch the ball. It was in the same game, and on a punt. I think it was a punt or a kick return or kick. Anyway, they called for fair catch. The ball bounces, and then the player picks it up and then starts running. And there was a lot of people out there going, "Oh no, the play's dead. Why didn't we do it?" No, that's not what the rule book says. So once the ball bounces, now the fair catch, is off, and now it's basically again a live ball. There's a lot of scenarios where these balls, you better be careful if you're not catching it and you're calling something, because you got people rushing you, and that's where bad things happen. So just, looking at this game and just seeing this upset, and it's, again, when I look at just the officiating and the calls not called and the flags not thrown and the fumbles not called, and who do you think that the Patriots don't want to see? I mean, they don't want to see the Chiefs. The Chiefs beat them week 1. Now, obviously, everybody's a different team now, but they seem to have got the Patriots number, and the Patriots are sitting there going, yeah, I think we'll take the Titans. That'll be fine. Serve them up. And I just thought, talk about a day where they were just very happy about that. And that just seemed sad to me, because it was a mess. It was really hard to watch games on Saturday. So then we get to Sunday. And of course, the anticipated Bills-Jags game. And once the Titans win, because really, in my opinion, the only team that could have even, of all these teams that could have beat the Pats, would have been the Chiefs. So now who am I rooting for? Well, now I want to play, obviously an easier team. I know Ben said on his radio show and in a couple of interviews this week during the bye that he wants to see the Jags again not for revenge, for redemption, I would think. When you're seeing a team 3 months ago and you have statistically one of the worst games of your career, you've got 5 interceptions, and you go back and look at that, it really was 3 with 2 balls that should not have been intercepted, and then just were flukes. But the Jags have a decent, secondary. They've got decent backups. You've got, Jalen Ramsey back there balling, absolutely. Now, what's interesting is their comments this week. So first of all, how can they even think that was a win that they should be proud of? I know that we say, oh, a win's a win, an ugly win's still a win. I'll give you that, absolutely. But then, you know what? Go put your head down and be happy that you snuck out of your stadium with a win. First of all, you were playing the Bills, who have not been in the playoffs for 17 years. And we that feel-good story that we've been seeing all week, everybody wanted them just to please pull it out, and they almost did. But again, another controversial call where Jalen Ramsey has a pick. They don't review it. It hits the ground. It moves. Clearly not an interception. He didn't even run with it, and they didn't call it. It was maybe 5 seconds, 6, 7 seconds, and it's supposed to all if it is a turnover, those are all supposed to go up to the booth. Nothing was called, and then obviously, and they had momentum when it came to the Bills, and so they just basically said, no, we want the Jags to go to Pittsburgh. And there were 60 attempts in that game as far as passing between both quarterbacks, 29 completions, between both quarterbacks, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Blake Bortles, he's probably one of the worst quarterbacks out there. He had 87 yards passing and 88 yards rushing. Now, the rushing was a surprise for a lot of people. He's Big Ben's size. And Ben started rushing recently, which we're like, stop doing that. But, when it's there, if you can get that first down, okay. But they just weren't ready for it. And if you saw him throw, how many throws did he put in the ground? How many throws could he not make? He was thrown to everybody but one of his players. And, it makes me think, okay, if for those of you Tim Tebow haters, go look at Blake Bortles. You'll be like, Tim Tebow isn't that bad. But now this week, all of a sudden, the Jags secondary is starting, and the Jags defensive players are starting to talk trash against the Steelers, saying, oh, we beat you way, way back in October. And we're just like, okay, you know what? Why don't you take a terrible towel and step on it? And, WTF. First of all, you lost to San Francisco. You lost to Tennessee. You only put up 10 points against the Bills. You've played terrible in your last 5 games. And look what the Steelers have done. Seriously. They've only lost 1 game, and that was the controversial game with the Jesse caught the ball game, that we know he caught it. And so that would have made them undefeated since seeing the Jags way back in October. And so Ben was not even in the conversation for being a Pro Bowler back then, and he is a Pro Bowler quarterback. Brady, Ben, Rivers. I mean, it's just funny to me how they're looking at this and not realizing that their offense is terrible. Their offense is terrible. And so to really think that they have a chance between a seasoned Steelers team, I'm not even worried about this one. And I'm tired of people saying, oh, well, we play down, or the Steelers play down to bad teams. They have played very well on the road. They've played very well at home, with the exception of this game in October. And Ben is 3-0 in playoffs at home. So, you know what? Put a fork in it, fellas. WTF, you're not going to win. There's no question in my mind we're going to win. It's just, are we going to put up 40 points, or are we going to put up 50? So I have really no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a great game. It's going to be on the Steelers side. It's going to be very sad for the Jags. And I think getting AB back, all of our killer bees are there, and it's just going to be crazy. It's going to be one of the better games out there. So a couple of things, just a couple of WTFs to wind it up and wind down and then talk about everything we're looking at. When we looked at the Rams game, the one thing that I think is unacceptable are the field conditions. And the reason I'm putting that out there is that game was hard to watch to begin with, but to have players just slip and fall all the time because the field is so torn up. Now, the Coliseum is not a fun field to play on. It's not. But if you're going to host a game there, you need to have it ready, regardless of what concerts were there the night before. So for the Los Angeles crowd, get your field ready. This is getting a little bit ridiculous. And the fact that it costs $250 just to park in Los Angeles from that game, and you're still having to walk a half a mile, you need to get your field ready. So, but that game was it just was a really tough weekend when it came to refereeing, the fact that the games were just awful. The only game really worth watching was the Panthers-Saints game. I mean, that actually was a decent back and forth game. You can't count out Drew Brees. I mean, that guy just puts up numbers that are just ridiculous. But, and I personally think that it's going to be a Saints-Pittsburgh Super Bowl. So that's where I'm going with that. But we're going to go ahead and close it out now, folks. And I just appreciate you listening in. And for those of you that are new to our WTF podcast, keep going. Keep coming back with us. We have them each week, and we'll hopefully have a really good one when it comes to divisional weekend. So divisional rounds coming up, and I can't wait to see what we do this weekend in our big blowout against the Jags. So be good, be safe, and thanks for listening.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.